evening, Littleton. Welcome to the January 22nd, 2024 Select Board meeting. We will be going into executive session and coming out approximately at 6:30 p.m. So I'll look for a motion.
Move the Select Board vote to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 41A2, to conduct strategy in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, police, fire, dispatch, and public works unions. In executive session number 2, under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, interim fire chief. The Select Board will adjourn to executive session and will convene an open session after the executive session.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Mark?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. We will see you in approximately 35-40 minutes. Thank you. Good evening, Littleton, and welcome back to our January 22nd, 2024 Select Board meeting. We are out of executive session. To start off, I'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Mark,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Thank you. All right, we're going to go over the agenda real quickly. We're going to start off with some department updates after we get done with reading the mail and organization. Department updates, fire department, we have a recognition this evening. We'll look at some public works. We've got some deficit spending with the snow removal budget. We'll get into our public input and member updates. Then we will have a public hearing on Littleton Convenience, consideration of application from Wines and Malt to all alcoholic beverage license. And then we will get into our Select Board Town Administrator updates that will include a cannabis law update. And we'll get into some of the HCA discussion. We will talk a little bit about the MBTA community, a letter that considering sending to the governor. We will look at reclassifying the Assistant Treasurer Collector Payroll Manager position in town, and we will review proposed revisions to Select Board alcohol licensing policy within the Select Board's regulations. So this is just part of our, Mark puts a lot of work into this as we slowly update policies that are out of date or need to be removed that have been around too long, or potentially new policies. And then we'll get into our minutes, and then we will adjourn. So with that, we have the reading of the mail.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Remind everybody that we have one open position, volunteer position, to be on the Clean Lakes Committee. There are two positions that are available for Permanent Municipal Building Committee. One available position open for Sustainability Committee, and 3 alternate citizens at large members at the Transportation Advisory Council, and 1 alternate position for the Zoning Board of Appeals. Also, if anybody out there in Littleton would like to receive notifications from the town on everything that's happening, transportation, public safety, town meeting changes, public health concerns, please go to our website, www.littletonma.org/subscribe, and you will immediately start receiving. Also would like to also recognize, we received notification on the first robotics competition for the 2024, for Littleton Robotics 2024 season. And this is something that is a very, very exciting thing. And as a matter of fact, it's also something that the World Championship is in Houston. And events are open to the public, so we wish everybody in the Littleton robotics community the best of luck and on achieving that goal. We also received a letter from National Grid regarding The property location at 48 Beaverbrook Road in Littleton. National Grid's the Integrated Vegetation Management Program, which focuses on the removal of tall-growing trees and shrubs to encourage the establishment of a low-growing shrub population on the right-of-ways. So this is just a notification that they will be doing that trimming. And that's it
That's it?
for the mail.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any questions? We're good? All right, on to, let's see, department updates. We do have a fire department recognition of David Erickson for the donation of a fire hydrant mailbox to the fire department. This is great. How are you?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Tonight, we're here to recognize David Erickson for a super nice gesture you did for the department. So back before the frost, David sent me an email with a picture of a mailbox made from a fire hydrant. And he's like, hey, would you be interested in putting one of these in front of the fire station? I said, absolutely, it would be my profound honor. So as such, we got into November, got a little worried about frost coming, and David and I, Saturday, we did we poured a little concrete.
Concrete one
Who
day
needs supervision? We did it, and then Sunday morning we came back, and that time we used young labor and to pick that thing up, and we dropped it into place, and so anyone driving by the fire station can now admire our wicked cool mailbox. So I wanted to, we have a certificate for David to recognize him, and I'll read that. The members of the Littleton Fire Department want to recognize David Erickson of Erickson's Antique Stoves for his generous donation of a custom-made fire hydrant-themed mailbox to our station at 20 Foster Street. David has been a fixture in Littleton for over 40 years. Occupying the train depot building on Taylor Street, restoring old stoves to their original condition. His love of Littleton is obvious to all who talk to him. To quote David, I live in Littleton, but I sleep in Leominster. So thank you, David, for this beautiful mailbox, which is the perfect complement to our fire station, and thank you for all you do for the town of Littleton.
You know, it all got started, my better half, Amber Wood, has two nephews, decorated Marines, and also very accomplished firefighters, one in Boston, one in Virginia. The one in Virginia is actually a specialist. He flies around the world to extricate people from earthquakes and whatever. So I started making the mailboxes for all of her nephews. And I kind of got into it. And I brought this one. This was an extra one. I brought it to Brimfield, and a guy really liked it, but he was kind of cheap. And I just said no. I said I'd rather give it away, you know. And it was the perfect spot. It's just Tom and I had a great time putting it in. I, really didn't know Tom before then, so. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'm glad.
Oh, this is
Got
fantastic.
one more project in my mind before I get too old, and when I'm ready, I'll present it, because I'll need a little help with installation of the next one. But again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to those who don't know, to blow my own whistle, I have an exhibition at the Historical Society building right now called Artistry in Iron. It's an exhibition of 15 of some of the finest stoves I've collected in 45 years.
Wow.
It's pretty unique. If you have time,
I will.
check it out. It'll be there for 2 more. It'll be there for 2 more months.
Wednesdays and Sundays.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I will second that. I've seen his stoves there.
Oh, they're
They're
beautiful.
amazing. So,
Your computer?
Nice catch. All right. We are on to Public Works. Approve fiscal year 2024 snow and ice deficit spending.
We have report from the DPW director that in all likelihood with potentially tomorrow with the melting, and then going to have to go out and look at treating the roads, we'll be at the close to if not at the capacity on the budget. So we'd just like the authorization to proceed into deficit spending, please.
Any questions?
Just why? Why do we have to do this every year? That's my only question. But it's rhetorical, so go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Move the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 31D, to approve incurring expenses in excess of the available appropriation for snow and ice removal for fiscal year 2024.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Matthew. All those in favor?
It says roll call vote.
What?
Well, in the packet, it does. But maybe.
We can do a roll call vote, just in case. Okay.
Okay. Mark?
Aye.
Chuck?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Matthew?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, let's open up. I want to do the member updates first, if possible. I know we all had a very busy last few days at the MMA conference, so Mark?
Yeah, so I was at the MMA Tech Conference. There was several, I don't know if you want to go through all the things we were there.
Any
but,
highlights if you have any?
There's going to be changes coming to the Green Communities program, beefing it up. Climate something communities now, but they're going to offer they're going to support a lot more different activities going forward, but the requirements to qualify are going to be more stringent and have to be renewed. For example, they'll be able to do like solar panels on buildings and things like that they currently don't. But you have to have a lot more qualifications in order to meet their climate communities. Outside of the MMA, I attended an MMA workshop on how to evaluate personnel, and it's pretty similar to what we're doing. And yesterday, I attended the Little Mermaid from the middle school, which was amazing performance and extremely well attended. Congratulations to all of the kids, and thanks for the community for coming out and supporting them. There were so many elementary school kids there, very excited, so.
Yeah, again, we annually, we attend the Mass Municipal Association, the MMA, which is a conference for community leaders, municipal leaders, and there's a trade show with and town council was in attendance, and any number of vendors, and it's always, I always find the highest value being the networking, speaking to other community leaders and asking them, hey, how are you guys handling this, how are you handling that, and just making those relationships, building those relationships. It just gives us people to reach out to if we're going through something. We now have these relationships, these friendships that we can reach out to and get a different perspective. And so I think it's a great investment of our time, and I appreciate the fact that we're able to continue to attend.
Thank you. Matthew?
The Orchard Working Group did publish the RFI on the 11th. We had a full immediate flurry of interest. There were a few hiccups with the email address, but we got those sorted. We got an email today, which Amy told us that so far 20 people have requested information about the RFI. So it seems to have generated some interest. And the only other thing I have is that I will be attending the Metro West Conservation Alliance is presenting a workshop on land conservation, specifically on prioritization and evaluation of land in order to correctly prioritize conservation land. It's in Stowe on the 28th of February. Anyone is welcome to attend. I was going to invite this board and the Affordable Housing Trust perhaps, and certainly I think conservation is already aware of it because Amy Green has reached out to me. Great. But based on our goal of, my goal, personal goal of trying to come up with a category, a list of prime real estate, as well as some of the debates we had over the Webster property, I think it's going to be a valuable thing.
Yeah. Great.
That's all.
Karen?
So Orchard RFI has been a labor of love, but labor. And so the 20 increase so far are a great sign, but that doesn't include the number of folks who just went to the website and downloaded the RFI. So those are really encouraging numbers. Wanted to thank Nancy Glenn Cross from IT for all her support. It was tremendous, and it was on the weekends, and it was at all hours, and it was, very much appreciated. Had lunch at the fire station with Chief Clancy and his team. I wanted to thank them for the warm welcome and the good conversation. Attended MMA, and that was my first MMA conference, and it was valuable. Met lots of other, especially I connected with other women on select boards, and that was really helpful as well.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Yeah, MMA, so it was interesting. We get to, obviously the governor speaks at the event, and the other community leaders, and we got to really kind of get a look at what's upcoming, fiscal climate, what's coming down the road, where the priorities lie with our state government and things like that. So it kind of gives us a little bit of insight on what to expect, not just fiscally, but overall, just kind of with the climate that the new administration is setting. So it's always fascinating. I also took advantage of some of the vendors that were there. The Cannabis Control Commission specifically happened to be there, and I know Chuck met with them for a while. I would say I took way too much of their time. I almost sat down with them and really picked apart some of the discussion that we're going to hear tonight as well, to get some insight on exactly what some of the expectations and what's coming down the road with them. I met with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. Well, pretty good. Chris Kluckman, I believe is her name. Yes. And kind of got a little bit of insight into MBTA communities and how that's rolled out, and some of the expectations. Put some of the falsehoods away. Clarified some things for me that I'll definitely continue sharing with the board, and where some of the things that are going to affect us. I know we've got more important votes coming regarding MBTA communities in Littleton, so I just want to make sure that we stay in compliance with that. And with all these individuals, of course, I got business cards, so that's just as important. Let's see, I also had on here, I've got an extended trip. I actually retire from my real life job after 31 years, 9 months, next Tuesday, so I will actually be taking some time in Hawaii in February, so you'll be sliding over for a bit. If I can't chime in from the beach, or if you guys don't want me to chime in from the beach, but you'll be running a couple probably of the meetings during that time. Other than that, one more thing. I did meet with the schools. We're coming to our budget, some of our serious budget discussions, even though we've got close to a balanced budget. We feel pretty good about it. We're over the next couple weeks, we're going to be meeting individually with department heads. You'll see it we have some agendas set up. I think the first one is tomorrow, where the department heads come in front of the Finance Committee and Select Board, go over their budgets, some of their wants, some of the things that didn't make it onto this cycle. It gives us some insight of what some of the things are that had to be cut off, but there's still existing needs that are out there, so it's good for us to know what those are. But I did meet with the schools, and there's some good news out of there. The schools were able to work their budget with us, work comprehensively with us, and it looks like we're going to be able to, they're going to help assist even more with our balanced budget to make sure that we're in a better place. And I don't think they've met as a full group yet with the school committee, so I don't want to share too much of that information, but they've been graciously worked with us, and I appreciate Superintendent Clenchey and his team for working with us on that. That's really all I have. So I would open this up to public comment if we have anyone that would like to speak at this time. Ms. Houston?
I have questions on 6A and B, so would you rather I do it now or can we get to those items?
Let me see what 6A and B are really quickly. You know what, if they're specific questions and we think they're going to be answered, if not, we'll try to answer them now, so, or public comment, we don't typically answer it, but let's hear what the comments are anyway.
So Anna
Show us your
Houston,
cards.
55 Jedford Street. Congratulations on your impending retirement,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
So good evening, and good evening to the other board members as well. So a couple of comments related to 2 agenda items. The first one is 6A regarding the host community agreements for cannabis establishments. I would like to have the completed HCA before the planning board continues its public hearing of sanctuary. I've asked the applicant for this since August 8th, as Section 173-198C says, in addition to the standard special permit application form, an application for a special permit under this article shall also submit the following: a copy of the final executed HCA between the application, between the applicant and the town of Littleton. So it's something that I would very much like to see.
Thank you.
Second, under item 6B, regarding the MBTA Communities Law, it's unclear to me what is happening with the proposed letter. So I look forward to hearing about that. But what I'd like to make clear is this. First, I really believe it's imperative that the Select Board and the Planning Board continue to work together on this very significant project for the town. And second, that we get confirmation from HLC, Housing Livable Communities, on the density per acre required around the train station, given that the King Street Common density already exists and it counts. So we need to really make sure that we understand the density that is required of us. And then finally, going along with the first 2 comments, that we get all of our questions answered by HLC. Perhaps Chris Kletchman could come to a meeting, et cetera, because I know that there are planning board members and select board members with questions, and so it would be great to be able to actually get those answered while we're all in the same room. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, let's move on.
Mr. Chairman, if you want me to just
Sure.
quickly run through any updates? Or do you want to wait?
You want to wait till the end for your updates?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. If
No, we can wait till the end. That's fine.
Actually, it's going to happen really quick anyway. We just want to do the public hearing, if we could. for the-
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
The end is fine.
Okay, so Littleton, public hearing, we're going to open a public hearing on,
Don't have a motion, so
Yep.
what if we just make a motion to open the hearing?
sure.
Move that the select board open the public hearing for full alcohol, all alcoholic beverage license for Littleton Convenience.
Second?
Moved by Mark, seconded by Matthews. Does this need to be roll call?
No.
It's not. All those in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. The public hearing is now open.
We don't need to read that to the record, as we typically have, no?
Yeah, I just don't have it. I think as long as we've actually opened it, I think we're okay.
All right. All right, the specifics. Littleton Convenience, consideration of application from a wine and malt license to an all-alcoholic beverage license. All right.
Sure.
So we have discussion on this particular license. I believe we all know where the location, where it's located, on Jennifer Street. Is that correct? Okay. We've all had a chance to look over the packet, so I've opened it up to any discussion
Do you want to hear?
as well as, yeah, I just want to make sure that no one on the board initially had any comments. So I'll open it up to our,
Attorney Burke?
Mr. Burke, I'm assuming you're representing,
I am, yes.
Thank
Good
you.
evening. It's nice to see everyone, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations on your retirement.
thank you.
A little envious.
Right.
And members of the board, I have with me tonight Rajesh Patel and Atul Bhagat, who presently own the beer and wine license there. I know in the past they were looking for and we're in competition for the only available liquor license at the time, probably I think was 4 or 5 years ago maybe. And they did not succeed, but they're back again, seeing that there are some of the, that there is an available license, so they thought they would ask and show interest in it again as well. By way of background, they've been here now for 8 years, pretty much you know, in the business community and a good partner in the community. And we're hoping that because they've expressed interest in the only existing license that exists for a full alcohol, we're hoping that we can create some equal footing for them in the competition in the area down there, and be fair, and trying to be fair, and hopefully give them an opportunity to compete, continue to be, you know, have a good presence in the community. It's a family business, as you know, if you ever go in there, sometimes you may see Rajesh's daughter or a nephew, or, you know, I want to say it's a brother, but it might be an uncle that's there as well. So it's a quaint family business. It struggles like everything else. They're not making millions of dollars like up in the Point or anything like that, but they're doing well and working hard at it. So we're hoping that with the opportunity to do this and get the license, that you know, we'll give them a good shot. If you have any questions.
Yeah, I'll open it up to the board.
I'll just comment for the public that anytime we have one of these petitions or an application that comes into us, Lisa, the town administrator's office does reach out to the police department, the fire department, and different departments that the building department to, you know, find out if there's any outstanding issues, or if there's, you know, if they're willing to endorse the application. And to the best of my knowledge, based upon the packet that we received, that is the case, that there's endorsements from the police department, the fire department, and from the building department.
And I can confirm that they've all been there and gave the place a look over, and a nice, simple visit, friendly visit. And if I can say also, Lisa's been very helpful.
Great.
In the past, when I've needed it, and with this application as well, she's been great.
Thank you. Thanks for the feedback.
Did anyone else apply for this license?
This is the application.
This is an application before
Well,
us.
I'm curious if anyone else has applied.
Expressed interest.
Or expressed, I mean, I know that we got a letter
Get a
from
letter,
someone
right.
who stated they had been inquiring about this license for some time, and I wasn't aware of it, but I'm not surprised at that. I'm just curious, like, what other people, any other entities are interested
Yeah,
that we don't know about?
So I think we have to, we take this application on its merits, singly on the merits of the application, and individually, our decision personally on how we, whether we want the license, obviously there, or somewhere else, or whatever, but without any other applicant in front of us, we cannot use that as a basis for saying yes or no, because it's irrelevant, to be honest with you, at this point, so.
Well, I guess the relevance would be, you know, we do have 3, 4, 5 licenses clustered within a
That's
few hundred
relevant.
yards of each
Sure,
other,
that's right,
right?
yeah.
And if there was somebody who wanted to open one across town, then perhaps that would be a reason to prefer one over the other, but we don't. So
Right, this,
I understand, I'm just curious, that's why I was asking.
yeah, I mean, we've had failed businesses across town, too.
Well, I'm thinking that's probably why they're all clustered in the middle of town.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so there, no, it's an interesting point, but yes, all of our licenses are going to be within, if this one is granted within, what, a half mile?
Well, the Point has the one-stop liquors,
That
so
would be outlier.
Yeah.
But
But so I
between
think
the Point and Donlands, basically,
But-
everything's clustered there.
it's also where this board has pretty much backed the promotion of our population density to be in that area as well, so.
And support small business.
Yep,
and
I agree.
Yeah, so I want you to continue speaking anything else, but.
No, I'm encouraged that it's a small business.
Yeah.
And I am in favor of granting them a license
Right,
as a
thank you.
result.
Karen?
No, I have no questions.
Okay.
I think it's clear that this is a responsible applicant, somebody with history here.
Okay. Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think this is capitalism at its best. We've got competition, for sure, in a very small area, but I think with the growth of Littleton, the current owners, inhabitants of this facility for, what, how many, 8 years now?
Yes.
Shows the dedication to Littleton and willingness to stay in town. So I think we owe it to businesses in our town to be as prosperous as possible, especially knowing what we have coming with a population boom for sure, in that area. So that's my opinion. I don't see any, outside of some of the comments that you made, you know, if there's a situation where someone comes forward with an application or an interest later on, we can always petition the state for potentially another license somewhere else.
I've actually done that in a couple of other communities, and the process, it takes a little while. It depends on how quickly the legislature is, but the state senator and the state rep are pretty good at pushing it along.
Yeah.
And so it works out pretty well, actually.
Yeah.
There's some indication at MMA too that there's going to be some potential increased flexibility on that front.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a couple, maybe Attorney Burke can speak to this. I appreciate the map, if you will, of the store and how it's going to be laid out. And that was the case with the previous applicant that we had, and, you know, there was assurances that there were going to be cameras in place, and, you know, the placement of the alcohol wasn't going to be next to the candy, that kind of stuff. So, looking at this map, it seems like that is the case as well, but if you could just speak to that to some extent, just to assure.
Yes, we're going to make sure that, first of all, it's not visible to the street as people pull up, so that way they won't be looking at, you know, all alcohol and everything like that. And then we intend to use the inside of the interior back wall as you come in to be the focal point with a couple of an aisle or two there, but the closest one to the door will be more like snacks and foods, candies and things like that. And we got a good idea from the other previous applicant was to put a sign up that encourages only adults to go into the area where the alcohol is. So I actually mentioned that to them tonight, and they thought that was a great idea as well. It's not on the map, but that's what we intend to do.
Yeah, I think as much of that as we can do, you know, to try to limit the exposure.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Along those lines, in the diagram, we have the coolers for soda and the coolers for wine probably should be swapped.
I think that that's probably what's going to happen, but right now it was based on where the coolers are and what's available, but the switching of around is something we can talk about as well. Because the whole idea is we want to get everything pushed into the back.
Yep.
All right.
Public comment?
Yeah. Looking for any public comment on this? Sure. How are you? Good to see you.
Good evening. My name's Dominic Seven. I'm a veteran, and I live at 80 Tehadawon, and I own Great Road Liquors, and I have no qualms about the owners of the Littleton Convenience getting a license. What I have a concern about is you're going to have 3 liquor stores within 4 or 5 blocks of each other. And I just thought that was kind of tight together, plus their store would be in a more residential area. And I just wanted to voice my opinion.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you. Anyone else on public comment? All right. Motion, we close? Oh, we have a comment. Hi.
Kimberly Hendrickson, 12 Spartan Arrow Road.
Hi.
It's my understanding, sorry, a little background. A good friend who studied sociology, did his graduate work on studying crime, and he said that like within a mile of a liquor store, you can just, plot it on a map, crime goes up. And it doesn't seem like a great leap of logic that the more potent the liquor you sell, the more you might see an increase in crime. And it concerns me that that might be something that we're allowing in a residential area. I have a good friend who lives within a mile of this store. I'm concerned about what impact this might have on her family. And I'm just putting those thoughts out there for your consideration.
Thank you. Any more public comment? Any further discussion?
Nope. Move to close public hearing.
Second. Mark has moved to close public hearing. Chuck has seconded it. This is a roll call vote. Mark?
Aye.
Chuck?
Aye.
Matthew?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. All right.
Discussion?
Any further discussion on this topic?
No.
For the motion that's in front of us?
Move the select board vote to approve the requested change of category from wine and malt beverages to all alcohol beverage license under Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 15, submitted by licensee J. Ram Kabir, Inc., doing business as Littleton Convenience, 12 Jennifer Street, Littleton, Mass.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Matthew. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. And thank you for your continued business in town. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. All right, now we move into town administrator.
Make it as quick as I can. Just want to thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We had a second department head meeting today, and this morning it went fantastic. It was great to see the exchange of things that are going on in each department, and ideas that were shared, and experiences that were shared from other people, and so it's working very, very well. It is. So just some real quick updates. DPW update. We're looking at if residents have an issue and they need some sand, they can pick up sand at the DPW yard. Residents that are over 60, EHS will deliver a bucket. You just have to call the EHS office, and they'll be happy to get some sand, and they'll deliver it to someone's home. Assessor's office is in full swing with abatements. It's a very, very high volume. They're working morning, noon, and night and doing what they need to do in a very short span. Really outstanding work. Town clerk has received 15 candidates for all the various for the election of different boards that are coming in. 15 candidates have pulled papers. And in terms of early voting cards, there's been over 300 that have been returned so far for early voting. So a clear indication that there's passion out there. Fire department, they received a EMPD grant, which is poisonous gas meters, to get multiple meters that are here. So they received that grant from MEMA, in Massachusetts Emergency Management Association. Board of Health, finalists for the director of the Board of Health. Interviews were conducted for today, I believe this week, that they're going to be finalized, and some will be brought forward, which is good. Getting back to EHS, Mark Mattapoisett, Regional Transportation Authority, is starting February 1st through May. They will have free rides. They will provide rides to residents from the Littleton Motor Court, Mill Pond Apartments, Pondside Apartments, Village Green Apartments, Pine Tree Park Apartments, Littleton Green Apartments, twice a week. And it will be a shuttle. On Fridays, it will go to Don Lynn's, Trader Joe's, and Trader Joe's Plaza. And then on Tuesday, it will go to the Point at various times. They'll be dropped off and picked up on multiple times. And also...
Jim, is that usable by anyone?
Well, they're specifically identified areas to pick people up.
Right, but it's not just for seniors, or, it sounds like it's usable for anyone.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
think so, yeah.
Okay.
For the residents.
Any resident.
Yeah.
At those
Thank you.
locations, yeah.
Also, want to make everyone aware that the emergency gift fund for fuel assistance is, there's money there in the event that someone is having a difficult time. Please reach out to EHS at 978-540-2470. They need some help, and there'll be an intake process for residents to go through, and they'll try and identify the most advantageous subsidy that they can for those individuals. 36 King Street. The contracts have been executed with the OPM and the designer, and the first the PMBC meeting, I believe, is going to be the first one with everyone on board. Is going to be this week, I believe, to move forward on that. We have 31 Shattuck Street will be used as field offices during the construction of the senior center, and that will be housed by Commodore Builders and Vertex, and that will be coming forward. Ammon service agreement is in place from the last meeting. That there will be someone that will be able to actively pursue and collect any bills, any outstanding bills or anything like that. And I believe, and then we are going to have an internal meeting about a community one-stop for growth grant, in which I believe that Littleton has been recipient of that for over a couple of years, and we're going to, the team is going to have an internal meeting on what we would propose, and we'll share that before anything is submitted. It's a little bit of a lengthy process to submit, but we'll be able to share that with the select board before anything. And that's it.
There was one thing I wanted to add, and I apologize, it's sitting in my truck. I picked up at the MMA, is Littleton, the recipient of an award, if you want to, I know you were part of that, and Diane and Lisa, and...
Right, yeah, so special thanks to Lisa and Diane in the town administrator's office. They put together our annual report, and we were the top pick for our population group. So we received the award as for the best annual report. So my sincere thanks to them for getting that done. The report looks great and something I think we can all be proud of.
Yeah, sitting in my car, I wanted to show it to the camera, but maybe we'll get it for the next meeting.
I'll show him while he's in Hawaii.
There you go.
It definitely, up against a lot of competition, obviously, in the state. So to get first place, I think we've won it before.
We have.
We slipped a little bit, now we're back on top where we belong. But I know a lot of work goes into that, and it's a great town report, and you don't truly appreciate it until you look at some of the other towns, and you're like, ooh. So I definitely thank the team for that. All right.
Just piggyback on something Jim said.
Yeah.
Jim mentioned the TREAD, and anybody that needs resources can reach out to EHS to be a recipient, but that's available. People can donate to that as well. So that's how the TREAD fund grows, and that's available to folks if they really wanted to reach out to EHS and make a donation to it. That's how that's funded to help those in our community.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move right into 6A, Town Council. We have a cannabis law update, discussion on town's host community agreements, HCAs with cannabis establishments, and social equity policy update.
And Mr. Chair, I'll recuse myself for this one.
Yes, please. Thank you. Right, good evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
So I wanted to come because last we spoke in October, the Cannabis Control Commission promulgated their final regulations. We had gone over the draft regulations, but now they are official. So there are sort of two areas where I think we should focus our attention tonight. The first is the host community agreements, and the second is the social equity requirements. As you know, we started working on the host community agreements back in October of 2022 after the 2022 changes to Chapter 94G. And at that time, communities were scrambling across the Commonwealth to try to comply with the statutory changes. The primary change was the amendment to the community impact fee and how those fees were collected and rules around requesting them or including them in your host community agreements. So we talked at length about that, and we went through and amended a bunch of our host community agreements to comply with the Act. Since then, the regulations have put additional requirements and have clarified and specified in more detail the statutory obligations. So some of the changes that we made, for example, revising the community impact fee requirements and MRM's host community agreement, do not comply with the October changes that the Cannabis Control Commission promulgated. So we will need to go back and talk to our our cannabis establishments, even if they have previously executed amendments with us. In addition, we have Sanctuary's host community agreement that still needs to be discussed. So the first kind of focus is the process of revising the HCAs to come into compliance. Starting in March of this year, all cannabis establishments that are applying for licensure or for renewal will need to have their host community agreement evaluated and approved by the Cannabis Control Commission. If there's a term or a condition in those host community agreements that violates either the 2022 changes in the Act or the regulations, then the Commission will send the town a letter and the process goes from there. You can be fined if you do not agree to amend your host community agreement to remove these terms that are in conflict. So I think it's imperative that we continue our discussions with our establishments to help get these host community agreements in compliance. In January 11th, the Cannabis Control Commission issued or released a draft model HCA. It's in draft. It has not been adopted. I think it is.
Yeah, I saw it's open for public input.
It's open for public
through
comment.
the end of the month.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do think it's worth waiting until the model becomes final before we finalize any HCA amendments. But knowing the Cannabis Control Commission, I wouldn't expect it to change significantly. That said, as a municipal attorney, I do believe that there are accepting the model exactly as it is may not be in the best interest of the town. There are ways we can maybe incorporate additional provisions into the model. For example, termination, we can explore that clause to see if we can add additional provisions there. There might be more clarity around communication with the police department or other fire safety personnel. So I think there is some room to play within the model, but again, these are discussions that are policy-based, and we can have them once we do see what the final model looks like. So that's the first kind of area that I think we should discuss tonight. The second is the social equity component. We talked about this in the summer. The requirements are pretty extensive. They have been outlined for you. I think the way I like to think of it is trying to deal with the low-hanging fruit first, and then we can kind of deal with policies. So the low-hanging fruit are those requirements that our website include details on how an applicant can apply for a host community agreement, can apply for a special permit, making sure that all the key players are identified clearly, their contact information. So I would advise that you authorize our office to work with the town administrator to ensure that your website satisfies the obligations of the social equity program as outlined in the October regulations. In addition, this board will need to consider adopting some policies. We did circulate a draft social equity policy back in August. I think that is a policy for the board to consider. We're happy to have feedback. Other communities have explored those types of policies as well. The more complicated one, which I do think it may benefit the town to wait at least another month or two to see if the commission issues any guidance, is every community will need to have kind of a host community agreement review process, and there will need to be clear data points and metrics imposed in that policy. We have yet to see any guidance from the commission. Like I said, the MMLA, the Massachusetts Municipal Lawyers Association, has been asking for this from the Cannabis Control Commission. I believe MMA is as well. It would be really helpful to see some state guidance and not put it all on communities to come up with this calculation and algorithm. It will need to be posted on your website. Anytime you approve or deny an HCA, you will need to explain why, and their metric scoring card will need to be uploaded onto your website. So I do believe we need to adopt one. I'm just saying maybe we wait a month or two to see whether we get more guidance from the state. In terms of deadlines, May 1st of 2024 is when we have to come into compliance with these policies, the social equity policies. Failure to do so by May 1st of 2025 can result in fines. So while I think we need to move quickly and expeditiously, we do have a little bit more time on that.
So you just mentioned so March, we have our HCAs have to be in compliance. But then you're saying we should wait.
So with the March deadline, so it happens at the renewal of the applicant. So it's not like a liquor license application where they all expire and renew on the calendar year. Every cannabis establishment's license operates on their own year when they applied and when the commission issued it. And so, for example, if an applicant applied in December and was issued in December, they're up for renewal in December. So for that particular applicant, you have until December to amend their HCA, because right now it doesn't need to be submitted to the Cannabis Control Commission. So one thing that we do need to start getting better at is record keeping on our end, making sure we identify and have a database about what's the licensee's name, when is their annual renewal. So those types of things are data that we haven't historically collected. The commission has it obviously, but it would be nice to have it all in one place. So as a town, we can keep on top of this.
All right. Anything else on that?
I think that's a summary. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure there'll be lots of them, but.
All right. Mark, do you have anything up front you want to speak to?
So, I lost word. So we have to update all of the HCA's as we're going forward by whatever their renewal period is. But then we also have to go through and create this social equity policy and the scoring policy. So you're suggesting what's in the packet has a policy now, but we just didn't approve it?
So in August, the letter that I sent to the board in August, we suggested a policy. It was based off of policies that other communities have done. So obviously I would ask this board to look at that policy, see if it works for Littleton, see if additional changes should be implemented. But you need to do a social equity policy, and then you also have to have a host community agreement review policy. The Cannabis Control Commission will be issuing a model bylaw as well that outlines kind of ideal, I guess, like ideal social equity policies. We haven't seen it yet. It's referenced in the regulations. So if you do adopt the bylaw, you're presumed to be in compliance with the minimum obligations of the social equity policies. But we have yet to see that. So again, that's why I'm saying I think for the social equity component, let's take the low-hanging fruit now. Let's do the website, make sure the website's up to date. Let's look at adopting a social equity policy for the board. Let's hold off at least a month, probably a month, hopefully, on a host community review policy and any other changes. That would be my recommendation. I'm really hopeful the commission provides more guidance, but if not, next month we can start talking about host community policies and what those would look like.
You mean basically the rubric for how we're scoring new
Yeah.
HCA's that come in?
Exactly.
That doesn't really apply to our existing HCA's though, because we're not going through and rescoring them, we're just updating them.
Correct, yes, and I should note in the regulations, we don't exactly know how this will pan out, but in the regulations there is a notice provision that if a community is going to discontinue its business with a establishment, you have to notify the Cannabis Control Commission, and then if that discontinuance was done in bad faith, there can be some type of hearing process. Again, these are all new regulations. We don't know what that actually means. We can take educated guesses, but until guidance and precedent is set, it's hard to really anticipate what that will look like.
So we have to update all of our HCA's that we have now as the licenses renew. Is this expected to be an annual process, or is this a one-time process where we have to review them every time they renew, or just this time to bring them up into compliance?
So they will be reviewed every year by the Cannabis Control Commission. We should only have to do this process one time. We should do it right. It should comply with the regulations that were adopted in October. It should comply with the regulations, the 2022 Act. And then you shouldn't have to do it again. You may have to if it expires per its terms and you need to execute a new one. Those are reasons. But this board shouldn't have to review host community agreements annually.
Okay.
Previous HCA's that we have executed have been a 5-year term, I believe, right?
It's
Unless they were renegotiated.
most of them, yeah. So the answer is really no, I would say. It's dependent. A lot of them have terms that run. So under the regulations and the Act, you can charge community impact fees now for 8 years post-operation or 9 years post-final licensure, just in case someone takes long to get off the ground. Even if they have their final license, you're still capped at that 9 years. So I think those would be the terms that we're going to see. I do want to remind this body that you don't have to execute a host community agreement anymore. There is a waiver that you can grant establishments. So some communities are contemplating whether a host community agreement is necessary or right in their community, and if they don't think it's needed and they rely on their zoning, then they elect to waive the host community agreement process. I'm not saying that's what Littleton should do, just informing you that there is an option not to execute a host community agreement.
So that actually speaks to one of my questions, which is, is there any guidance from the Cannabis Control Commission as to how to, in terms of adopting an HCA evaluation process, if we're not doing HCA's anymore, have they given guidance? Do you just post that on your website? Or
Correct. So everything needs to be posted on your website. In terms of guidance on model, the metrics that you're reviewing, we haven't seen anything out of the commission yet on that, except that social equity applicants need to be weighted higher than non-social equity applicants.
So the current HCA's we have, is it town council's recommendation to really, my personal opinion is to use this template, add very little to it, unless it's really specific to Littleton. I did look at the draft, and I'm not familiar with CCC on whether they really will listen to what people are saying. But if it stays the way it does, it's pretty complex, about 9 pages. And would it be wise to just update everybody's HCA on these new templates? Is that what your recommendation is?
So those are policy decisions. All I'm saying is from a legal standpoint, that's one option. I know lots of communities like Holyoke and Boston, larger communities that have historically been very welcoming to marijuana businesses, are adopting a model or have their own model, and it's basically just like businesses come in, I want a host community agreement, here you go, sign this. So the model does allow for the collection of community impact fees, because I know that was a concern of this body before, as long as the fee is reasonably related as defined in the regulations, and it's been properly documented by the town, then you can go through the process that's outlined in the regulations. So it does protect you in that case if down the road the board does elect to recover in some way. So I think that's a fine option, Chair, but it's a policy decision, not a legal decision.
Okay.
I do think equity among the applicants also makes sense, but businesses are different. So if something warrants a tweak, we can always talk about it too. If a particular business in a particular location has different or unique issues, that can be incorporated.
All right. Mark, did you have more?
No, so the policy that you presented in August is what you're suggesting we
I'm suggesting
start as a draft for our social equity policy.
Correct.
And then we should, just the timeline for these things, then you're suggesting that the work on the website be done more or less immediately or in the very short term. The social equity policy is in the next month or so.
Yeah, so I would say by May, you should really have your social equity policy adopted and the website updated. Hopefully by May, we also will have guidance on how you should be reviewing and weighing HCA applications. So in an ideal world, we'd have that done by then, but if that takes longer, I think, we can deal with it. But May is the deadline, and we don't want to be in non-compliance, so we just need to work as quickly as we can to hit that deadline. I'm really hopeful the commission will help us in that regard. So right now we have two things we know we can accomplish, the website and the social equity policy. So tackling those first seems like the best option.
Okay. And then we're going to update the HCA's on a rolling basis, or are we going to we're going to wait for whatever this draft is to be finalized, and then we're going to go through and do them all at once, or?
So I would prefer to do them all at once. I think that's easy, but I think it depends really on what this board wants, right? Do we want to just say, we're going with the model, let's wait until the commission finalizes it, and then tell all of our current applicants we want to switch to this model? Or does this body want more individualized attention for each of the establishments? It's really a policy decision. We need to make sure that any condition that is imposed, however, is not unreasonably impracticable. That's the terminology that the commission utilizes. So if you are going to impose a condition that's not included in the model, we need to make sure that we're evaluating whether we think it meets that new standard.
So I'll just speak for myself, is I'd rather have one HCA for everybody than individual HCAs.
I lean towards that as well.
Okay. So with our current, let's use our own current businesses that we have. The timeline, here we are waiting on a template to be finalized. I guess speaking to the board, I think perhaps we should really look at a time when we want to open up to applications for an HCA. What we need, what do we need between now and the sooner the better? Open up for business for our second license.
Okay, so that's a somewhat separate question. All right, so the issue that you're talking about, Chair, is that under your zoning bylaw, you can only have, right now it's 2. retail adult use special permits in town.
Correct.
We have one special permit issued and being operated, and we have one. So the question is, how do you want to make known that we have this additional special permit? And this body can give out, to be clear, this body is not confined by how many host community agreements you want to give out. You could give out 1 million host community agreements. It's really just who gets that last special permit. And so you could make known to the public that there is a special permit available in your town, and that whoever comes to this body, you could apply for a host community agreement, we'll issue the host community agreement, and you can try to get the special permit. Obviously, no promises are made by obtaining a host community agreement. The planning board is their own independent body. But you can definitely advertise it if you want to. We've seen communities, and I think Littleton in the past had done this too, you could do an RFI to try to drum up interest and say, you know, on X date, we're going to review all of them, and whoever we feel like is a good applicant, we're going to accept. You could accept 1 of those, 2 of those, 3 of those, 4. You know, if they're all great applicants, you could issue all of them HCAs, and then it's really a race to the permitting finish line, you know. So that's kind of a different discussion than the existing.
But we're working with a draft template.
Correct. So, I mean, it's hard, right? So, I mean, we can create a host community agreement that looks similar to this model, and we can move forward with
I mean,
them.
that would be my recommendation is, over the next few weeks, month, we get our what we want the HCA to look like, and that's what we use. And then, yes, if cannabis control comes along and really makes some significant changes, which
They've issued a draft.
they have, and it's like I said, it's open for public comment for another week. And I reviewed it. It's got a lot in there. You mentioned a few things that might.
So, yeah, in my opinion, and obviously this is just my opinion, but I think that any changes that are going to be made, to the extent they're going to be made, will be more favorable to communities. I think it's unlikely that they're going to decide that a condition in the model is unreasonably impracticable for an establishment to satisfy. So, yes, we don't have a final, but I believe that we could reasonably rely on the model that has been presented to us.
I think my recommendation would be over the next month that 2 members of this body work with town council to get this drafted, get this where we want it. That way we don't have to be waiting every 2 weeks for this body to meet all right, where are we at? Let's all come in.
So do we have an idea when the proposal from the cannabis control goes from draft to final? You said their comments are closing, but did they, have they published any schedules?
Timing doesn't work great for us.
It's a state agency.
No, well, the timing's fine. We can we can operate on whatever timeline we want.
True.
So it's a matter of whether the only timeline that I would actually turn this around slightly, and rather than worrying about a new business, it's Sanctuary, right? Who needs a new HCA to go forward for their extended special permit. So let's turn this around instead of what do we need to move Sanctuary through the process.
So, may I, Chair?
Please.
So just to answer that question, so I think Sanctuary's special permit, I think Sanctuary's HCA is currently valid and in effect until either May 13th, 2025 or September 17th, 2025. And the difference there is that it's based on when they became operational. And according to the Cannabis Control's minutes, I saw a March 7th deadline, but their attorney sent me an email that said June 12th. So we can figure that out, but I think their host community agreement for adult use is valid until 2025. That said, it doesn't comply at all with the act. I was talking with their attorney, and he actually forwarded me the model like the minute it came out and was like, hey, this is very similar to what we've been talking about. We would be happy to move forward with something like this model. So just more information for you.
So I would prefer to take whatever the model we're going to use, or the model with your recommendations on changes, right, and go forward with sanctuary and make sure that the process works that way. In the meantime, we can go through and figure out, do we want to open up and ask for, do an RFI or whatever with HCA's in general, because we're going to have to come up with a whole social equity plan at the same time,
Right.
potentially, that we don't even have. So I think asking for new HCA's before we have the social equity plan and everything in the rubric might be premature.
I don't think they have to be in parallel. I think, am I right?
I think that's a policy decision. The deadline's May 1st for your social equity policy. I do think, to the extent we do issue an RFI, but we need to be cognizant that we're not discriminating against social equity applicants and doing everything we can to make sure social equity applicants are aware of the RFI and can compete for an HCA if you're deciding to limit it.
It's kind of hard to open it up for the social equity without having the social equity pieces in place. That's what I'm worried about if we're trying to open up the HCA's, is that there's a lot of other stuff that we would need to do for the social equity and the rubric effectively, that we might be a little in front of ourselves.
Okay, let's talk timelines. I mean, obviously, you're right on the sanctuary one. There's nothing really holding us back from this HCA besides, we were waiting on a new template. We knew it was coming, and here it is. It's right in front of us now, so we can consider that. I think we all should look at it, but I still think that one sounds like we might have a little more time than we thought to update.
On sanctuary?
Yeah.
So the comments from Ms. Heston seem to suggest that they wanted to see a revised or a final host community agreement. From a special permit perspective, they do have a valid HCA that they could submit, but it doesn't comply with the act. So I think it'd be reasonable for the planning board to want to see another one. I think that's a reasonable request,
right, but Ms. Houston mentioned that earlier.
From a legal perspective, they do have a valid HCA right now.
And what is the date that we need to, in order to stay in compliance with a new HCA for sanctuary?
So I think
There's a
that
couple of
their
dates.
HCA, again,
There's more
I
than one
need to,
date.
no, I need to confirm with their counsel, but the minutes of the January 24th, 2019 Cannabis Control Commission meeting seem to suggest that's their renewal date. So they may actually have until January of 2025 before they need to submit a new HCA
To the Cannabis
Commission. That said, I don't think we should wait. I think we should
No, if we're
get
ready,
this stuff.
that's what I'm saying. If we have a template that works, let's sit down with them, let's get it done.
Especially if the planning board wants to see an executed HCA.
Right.
In order to move forward.
Right, and I know their counsel would be willing to discuss the model, and he's already indicated that he thought the model was close to where we were back in March of 2023. So I'm hopeful we could present something to this board at its next meeting, even if that's what this board wants.
Yeah, I think that would be great if we can get to that point.
So are we adopting a template first before we go to sanctuary?
Yeah.
Or are we going to sanctuary there and there by de facto establishing a template for everyone else after that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a template established for us to use.
There's a template established with recommendations for changes. So we don't have a template yet.
Well, we're allowed to manipulate each HCA based on
but let's not.
circumstances.
But I thought, I thought there was a discussion that we don't want to do that.
Right.
We want to have one.
Correct.
So shouldn't.
And that's as fair as you can be. Right. So-
Absolutely. I'm just saying, I think we're getting over our skis a little bit because we need to know what our template is before we go to sanctuary and propose a template.
Well, unless sanctuary becomes the template.
So
But I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've reviewed it. It's, there's a lot of language in there that I have to get comfortable with, but I think it's going to work. I think it's going to work for anything that we do in Littleton. But I want the rest of the board to look at it and decide. That's what I'm saying. We need time. And if next meeting we can come up, we can get something in front of us that,
we're going to know soon after public comment closes how much public comment there was. So if there's a ton of public comment, it's going to take CCC longer to aggregate or to digest it all.
yeah, they put a lot of work
If
in.
it's not a whole lot, then, and I think we can make a decision from that point, like with whatever draft or whatever template we have before us at that point.
Yeah, the only concern with it, you don't want to go through this twice. All right, that's my only concern.
Right, I mean, I do expect there to be a lot of public comment. I know communities were hopeful that there would be more detail in the HCA about communication with public safety officers. I know they wanted different termination provisions, so I do expect there to be comment. Whether the commission accepts that comment or not is anyone's guess. So, if it's a policy decision, does this board want to move forward with the draft HCA just to get sanctuaries wrapped up and in front of the planning board, or do you want to wait until if you are going to adopt the model, which it sounds like that's the direction you're going, do you want to wait until it's finalized?
And make it subject to review upon CCC's recommendation, or can we do something along those lines?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So if the model from CCC was not complete because of all the public input, and I think it's going to be pretty well aggregated. MMA is going to have their recommendation, so it's going to be pretty well funneled. If we were to do something with Sanctuary that wasn't necessarily the model that we want to do for everybody, if we wanted to make it one model, can we make sanctuaries conditional or subject to review in order to be compliant with?
The new model,
Yeah.
the non-beta model.
But if we're not under an immediate need to have it done,
We can wait.
we can wait.
We've got time on our hands,
But,
on our side.
I mean, I was looking at March to get all this done. I mean, that was kind of.
He's going away for the month of
And I-
February, too, by
I
the
know.
way.
Well, no, what?
I mean, the commission is hopeful that the model will be finalized before their March deadline. That's all I can say to that.
Yeah.
And so we can move forward on the draft, but, things might change. It doesn't mean all of your HCA's need to look the same. You can have differences as long as it's not arbitrary and capricious and there's reason behind it.
So we could have one for
You could have-
cultivation site versus a retail establishment.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, so that's sanctuary. Let's talk about our second license, recreational license. So how?
We have to have it HCA.
Right, that's what I mean. How, in your estimate, what's the timeline, realistic timeline, would you think we would be able to open up that?
So I think it's open right now is actually the answer. I think at any time.
Well, we never closed it, right, but.
Well, I mean, I think at any time, anyone can come forward and apply,
Yes.
right? And you would have to deal with that application before you. So I don't view it as opened or shut. What I see is when you feel ready, you can make a bigger public push announcement or something like that,
Yeah.
if you so choose. In terms of timeline, I think March is probably what we're looking at, right? We want to wait until we see the model. That, again, that doesn't mean someone can't apply right now for an HCA, but, it's again, this is a policy decision, not a legal decision. I think it makes sense to wait until if you are going with the model, to wait till the model's finalized and then your social equity policy is finalized, and then move forward with an RFI if that's what you want to do.
I mean, looking at the board, what you guys suggest,
I think in the interest of, if time is really something that we want to minimize, then I would say let's start reviewing the current draft model HCA along with your recommended changes. We can talk those over, we can have something ready to go, and then if there's changes later, then we can tweak it as necessary. But it'll be it won't take as long as if we were looking at it all, you know, and reviewing the whole thing.
I mean, maybe I'm just putting too much emphasis on their template. They have one. It's in draft. It looks good. I mean, this process, if in another month, they might have some tweaks to it from this input, and then at that point, when we're ready to go out, we just adopt, we adopted at that time, but I think everybody needs to look at it though. Because there's a lot in there, so that'll make a decision to move forward.
I think to being ready to go in the March timeframe is reasonable, because it's going to take us a while to go through the other policy too. Right, we have the social equity policy, right? You know, it takes 2 meetings to get a policy approved.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, there's a draft in there, right, that was presented that we should probably separate out and have as a standalone item on our next agenda so we can basically approve it by, you know, the end of February time frame, and at which point the HCA should be more standardized too.
I've never seen a cart so far in front of a horse in my life on the state. I mean, this is crazy.
I agree. But I do think we are getting closer. I think the commission is, you know, moving quickly.
And then we still have to come up with the scoring of how we're evaluating,
Right.
which is even more complicated.
Right, but there's probably a lot out there that, I mean,
Right, so I mean,
towns are already doing.
yeah, and I think it also depends on if you want to have an evaluation process. I know some communities, like I said, you want an HCA, you can get an HCA. There's no
Race to the finish
evaluation.
line.
And then it
Yeah.
becomes a permitting question, and you rely what's in your zoning bylaw to make sure that it's not a nuisance and cited appropriately.
So if you don't have, if that's the policy, of the board, then why do you need a social equity policy? Because it's no longer, there's no social equity component to it at all. It's a race.
That's because that's in the regulations.
But we never
Yeah.
use it. So,
All right, so you don't think it'd make more sense to have a couple of our members work with town council on?
Chair, if you may.
Yeah.
I think the better way of approaching that, or one suggested approach would be to authorize me to work on a policy, and then if I choose to reach out to board members, I can do so.
Okay, that makes sense. I was trying to take a little bit off you, but that's fine.
I'll take it.
And just, I mean, I'm not saying it's a race for us, but I think we were one of the first on board, and here we are, still going. So I want to make sure that we move forward sooner than later. So,
Right.
anything else in regards to the?
We've also gotten a commitment from the meetings we had over the weekend with Matt Giancola, the executive director, that if you have any questions, reach out. So they're very willing to help.
They are.
Yeah, Matt's great. He's very nice. And so if you do have questions, you know, I do encourage you to reach out to him. He's always been responsive.
Yeah, we'll probably copy
okay,
you.
yeah.
But the heavy lifting is absolutely on the town. I after really listening to him speak, they don't do a whole lot when it comes to going through these. Like I thought it was going to be some really deep dive.
Yeah.
The impression I got, it was most of it's on the town.
That's correct. And so I think from MMA's perspective, there's an unfunded mandate, you know, they love those words. But I agree with that. And I just also wanted to add, Mark, while you were talking about what is the point of a social equity policy, the policy does talk about access and making sure information is readily available, which are good goals, especially for non-English speakers. So I think that there is still benefit from the commission's point of view as having a social equity policy, even if you are going to just give everyone an HCA who asks for one.
It's just I think we're struggling with the time because here they're talking about social equity not till like May, HCA's, we've got the draft ready to go, and then meanwhile, Littleton's kind of running at its own pace. So we've got these.
Yeah.
So another question then, does the select board the select board probably has to adopt a policy whether, how many HCA's we're allowing to go forward? Whether we're allowing them all to go forward?
We can, we don't have to.
Or
We can do the date.
That's part of the.
No, what I'm saying is, do we allow one HCA to go forward or all of the HCA's to go forward, and then the planning board weeds them out?
Well, I think we
Right.
take that into our, whatever evaluation process we.
Yeah.
Selection process.
Right, so maybe
But that-
we take the top 10%.
Let's go, we're gonna have our.
No, what I'm trying to ask is that another policy that we have to incorporate or write somewhere, is whether we're saying, yep, you have an HCA, you checked all the boxes, go for it, or we're saying, we're not accepting more HCA's.
I don't know if it needs to be a policy. I mean, I think that's a discussion for this body. I do know that you have an HCA that is valid and active right now that doesn't have a special permit. So if the metric is one HCA for every special permit available, then you wouldn't be able to issue any more HCA's. So that doesn't seem to be the will of this body from the conversation I'm gleaming. But, so to your point, I think reviewing each HCA as they come in seems to be the preferred process. From a legal standpoint, it's easier to defend as well.
And then one other, we have some HCA's in here that we know aren't ever going to go forward or sound like they're never going forward. What do we do with those?
So some of them will expire eventually, and then some of them unfortunately don't have clear termination provisions. So it becomes, if you wanted to terminate them, we could talk about the legal risks of doing so. However, if you know they're not moving forward, I think it's appropriate to just let them sit. If that individual decides that they want to go apply for their annual renewal, they can notify the town, and we can, of course, work with them to adopt the HCA that's.
Yeah, I was thinking the Harvest Club that.
The Harvest Club's a great example. Yep, they have an HCA, it's still valid, but according to your prior town administrator, they're not moving forward.
Yeah, it'd just be nice to clear the books, right, effectively, right?
Yeah.
But if it just dies on the vine and expires.
Yeah, if there is an expiration. Otherwise it's just something that, oh, what's going on with that? Oh, no.
So it's not unrealistic to assume in March we might be able to have a social equity policy that's already drafted, if you will, for us anyway. An HCA that I think we're going to all be comfortable with the draft, plus anything that recommendations you might want to add to that, and then this board review. At that time, I keep saying we're going to open up, because I think we do need to do a public, something saying, all right, listen, we're opening this up for our second license. Is that?
Yes, so I think that's reasonable. The only suggestion I might make is I hope by March we have a final HCA model from the commission, so I can provide you my comments on that as well. Again, the cart before the horse, it's a little tricky here, but I think March is a very reasonable goal for adoption of HCA's.
What is their track record on meeting their deadlines that they've imposed on themselves before?
I can't speak to that. The regulations were a little late, but I think they really feel like the March deadline is a big deadline for them, because that's when they have to start reviewing. So I do think they have a feeling like it's not fair if this model isn't done by March. So I'm very hopeful they'll meet their goal.
In the past, they've had some
Yes.
turnover and.
They've had turnover, yes.
All right.
What else do we have?
There's a lot. So we'll be in touch, please. Yeah.
Okay, so just in terms of action items, it sounds like you'd like me to review the model,
Yes.
start drafting up some comments that I have. review the social equity policy will happen, review of the social equity policy will happen at your next
Yeah, we'll
or
get that in front of our
subsequent meeting.
board the next meeting.
Okay, and if you have any comments on that or
Yep.
tweaks, I know there was a comment about whether women count women-owned business. I sent another letter at the end of August on that point. And then we'll be in touch. Would you like me to reach out to the cannabis establishment's attorneys and let them know that there's consideration of this matter, or should we hold off?
I would say if they contact you, you can give them an update, but I don't think it's anything
Okay.
for you to be proactive.
So Sanctuary's attorney has reached out. Is the plan to just tell him we're gonna hold off until March?
I think that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and I'll double check with him on his license renewal, but I think it's in January, so I think we have some time on that one.
Do we want Ivrea to start aggregating like a scoring process? If you're coming across scoring processes in other communities?
I can see.
Is that something we want, or just take it one step at a time?
I think that's step 3, but yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And I'll definitely update you if the commission issues anything,
Yeah,
before next meeting.
I've been on their website daily lately, it seems, but, okay, thank you.
Awesome,
Thanks, Ivrea.
Can we get that door closed? Do you mind that?
Keep it chill. It's breezy down
It
there.
drops 20 degrees every time that.
Are we done with discussion on HCA's? I'm not taking public comment on that, sorry. Yep, sounds like it. All right,
Good night, guys.
thank you.
Ivrea, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's a lot.
It's what?
Well, it's just a lot of waiting, and it's crazy, but it is what it is. All right. Moving on, we have, this is a vote to authorize Select Board Chair Gary Wilson, to sign and endorse correspondence to Governor Maura Healey regarding MBTA community zoning on behalf of the Select Board. So, if you look at this letter, there are two things I want to point out, and I want to make sure that you guys know over. So, Ms. Healy's name, Governor Healy's name is misspelled on the first.
We fixed it in the,
You see it on the first.
oh, I see, okay. We could-
It's okay on the top,
I
but
see
it's not
it,
there.
okay.
And then on the second line, Molai Family Zoning instead of multi. It's-
Okay.
So if you could review it.
Spell check.
I'm not going to tell you who my editor was that picked up on some of these things, but she may or may not be in this room. So this...
Is her name Mark?
No.
By any chance?
So, concept of this letter. So this really has nothing to do with the zoning piece or the planning board piece per se. This is kind of a last-ditch effort, if you will, to get another option for this town besides having to put 150 units down on Foster Street. Okay. It's not anything that holds any teeth. A resident could have written this letter and requested it from Maura Healy. I do think, I would like to see, Jim, I'd like to see your email on this instead of Maren. I think it makes more sense. On the bottom, the last line, it actually says, please, any questions, please reach out to Maren. Now, I think about it, it should probably be you.
Okay. Because it's coming from us.
Yeah, this is coming from the select board, even though, I mean, obviously Maren works for everybody. So what the letter does, it's giving us another option. As we're coming up on a town meeting in May, we're going to have to be dealing with what are we going to do at King Street? I'll get to that, or to Foster Street. I'll get to that in a minute. This letter specifically is just asking the governor for relief, allowing us to take the 150 units, and this isn't a popular decision necessarily with everybody, but getting them off of Foster Street and putting them in where we want the zoning at 550 King Street or on the Common. That's all it says. It's not saying, what would have to happen if Maura Healy's office sign said, yes, we would be okay with this? The developer would have to go back to the planning board, put in an application for this. Obviously, there's a longer process in the sewering. We're not going to have sewering for that for 10, 15 years. So it wouldn't obviously fit on first phase. I don't have a high confidence that this letter, just talking with different personnel at the governor's office, I don't have a high confidence this is going to pass muster. They don't like to set precedents for other communities. So knowing that, and I want to say, I'm coming at this, I want this potentially to be an option the town has, for sure. We need to talk about how we want to work with the planning board going forward on Foster Street. So let's say this letter gets denied, or it doesn't get denied, it just becomes one of our options. But let's say it does get denied. Here we are back at May town meeting, asking the town to do the same thing we asked them to do that just didn't happen. So I want to kind of develop a plan over the next, till March 15th. That's when we have to have the warrant, correct? We'd still be able to work some after that. But if we're going to put new zoning on Foster Street on the warrant again, I think our board over the next 6 weeks needs to have joint meetings with the planning board or subgroup meetings with the planning board, if you will, 2 members of the select board, 2 members of the planning board, whatever, to discuss how we want to, and get some answers. And I know Ms. Houston spoke to, potentially getting the governor's housing office, someone to give us some true concrete answers to this zoning question. And as an example, we have all of these industrial zone buildings from Balsam Lane all the way to the top of Taylor. What if we rezone that entire place, that from Balsam all the way up mixed use? Could we spread the 150 out just by zoning? Not saying they'll ever get built, but just spread them out over that whole area. I don't know. Can we use 2 lots to do it? Are we restricted to 1? These are the questions, I think, in talking with Ms. Houston today, that we don't have answers to.
The density question.
We have the density question, and if it can be shared across multiple, we have quite a bit of area down there. Now, I'm not in it. We don't have time to survey the town before May to get, what do you guys want necessarily? So we have to kind of be proactive in coming up with as many options as we can that we can talk to, get some public input at our meetings with the planning board, preferably jointly, to really iron out, is the property, the existing property that was discussed in November that got shot down by the residents, does that property still work if it's manipulated differently or discussed differently with different housing options? There was very little flexibility in what was presented, and I think that's where residents got a little, and I'm one of them, that got a little concerned on how this was going to go down. The question still remains, there is 3 other properties down there that can be zoned.
And it would almost be like a belt and suspenders type of approach if we were to just put that forward. Put that article forward and say, if we rezone this, we figure out what the density is, and we say, these old digital buildings, but we've got plans for doing it that way because they were presented at a planning board meeting. What if we put that article forward and said, belts and suspenders, let's put it on the table to say, we could potentially zone this. And then if that passes, then we present that to the governor.
You're saying not...
We don't know where this is going to come back. So this could come back and say, yeah, we'll make an exception for Littleton. Or, nice try.
Yeah.
Go back to the drawing board. And I think part of one of the plans that should be on the drawing board is in fact the other side of Route 2, essentially, the buildings heading up Foster towards Taylor Street.
Yep.
And I think we should prepare an article to put before the residents that gives that option.
I agree, but I think it's going to take some meetings with the planning board.
Oh,
they're the key player in this, right? We're the warrant holder, certainly, but they're the key player in making this work and pitching it in a way that will work for the town. So we need to zone. We've met, no matter what we do on Foster Street, we've met the requirement by 140% in what we're
Of
putting.
the number of units.
Of the number of units needed. We've
Not
met
their
it
location.
140% by what we're doing down on the common. So zoning down there might not be the biggest issue that we have. I really want to find out if we just zone. I had a conversation today, I won't necessarily say who, because I don't want them to be mad at me, but 30 years ago, 20 years ago, if you were to tell me that there were going to be apartment buildings at IBM, I would have said you were crazy. So if we zoned one of these buildings on Foster Street at the top, or two of them, we zone them for this mixed use or for multifamily, it might not happen for 20, 30 years, but we've done it. We've checked it. I know, listening and watching the planning board, some of the discussion was so focused on the Long property in talking about the intent of the law. The intent of the law is holding us to 20% zoning near the train station. So for Littleton, that's 150 units.
I think it just puts us in good stead with HLC. If we were to propose that, it passed, so we made that zoning change, and we're delivering all the units that we are delivering. My opinion, if I'm looking at it from the EO HLC's lens, that puts us with check boxes that we hadn't had checked before.
Right, we've zoned.
Whether or not, to your point, it gets built 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, or never, we've checked that box, we've created that zoning to be able to potentially build 150 units within a half mile of commuter rail.
Yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the Long property. It very well may be a good location for some type of housing, but by working with the planning board to potentially zone other lots on that side of the street will give the planning board more flexibility on what to do with the Long property, which I think was a big concern with the residents. And, we can come to some type of an agreement where now you're not completely hamstrung by 150 units have to go at the Long property, and here's how it has to be. Well, let's talk a little bit more about how that can be laid out, potentially with other zoning and other property, or on that property itself. So I know there's some frustration with some of the citizens, because I've seen some of the emails. We can't go back to town meeting with the exact same proposal. It's not going to work, and that is not meeting the intent of the governor, because when I sat with Chris for the housing on Saturday, she watched our town meeting. She watches all the town meetings that discuss this. So she's very aware, Maura Healy's office is very aware of what towns are doing, and ones that are meeting the intent, and ones that have built 140%, and Littleton is a good story, and we continue to say it. It is a good story, what we're doing for housing and development and things like that. The zoning piece down by the train station is happening because of a law forcing it to happen. We can meet the intent of the law without potentially having to create this ungodly thing down by the train station. I just think we need to talk more and get creative and find out what exactly we have to zone, even if that expectation is nothing's going to go there for 20 or 30 years. I think that has to be discussion, and I've had this conversation with a few of the planning board members, and they say that does not meet the intent. Well, wait a minute. The law is the law. The state is holding us to a standard. You have to zone, period, meet the requirement. We meet it at 140%. We're going to hold you now to the law, and I will defend the town. I will go to court defending the town. We zoned exactly what we were told to do, and we're meeting 140% of the requirement of the required units that you would like. And it'll probably get more when we start, by the time we're done with the comment. I want to, talking to Ms. Houston, I'll bring it, we talked a little bit. can we grab the 5 acres from Durkee? That house that's existing there, put a couple townhomes there. Can we put that as part of this inventory? That alleviates some of the pressure on.
It's the whole density thing that has to be.
The density, but is it? We're not getting the absolute answers on the density down there that we need.
Right.
I really think this is going to require some in-depth meetings with the planning board, multiple meetings with the planning board or subcommittees of the planning board that we bring back to the board. I'd rather than just be joint meetings so we can really get this resolved before we have to go in front of town meeting. I want to know your thoughts on it, because I think this is such an important thing for the town, not just regarding the housing component of what's going to be on Foster Street and at King Street, but also with the potential loss of enormous amount of revenue to the town, or grant money and a lot of other things. So we have to recognize that, and that's always hanging out there. So what are we going to do? We're either, something like this is going to fly with the governor, and I hope it does. It will give us more flexibility, or if it doesn't, we need to be prepared to do what we think is going to be best for Littleton. And what we sent to them in November, what planning board sent to them in November, was not what's best for Littleton. It was obvious. That's my opinion.
Can I start?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm off the soapbox.
Okay. First, the difference between this letter and the other letter that we already sent is we're just adding 150 units to the village common area, and we're hoping that changes the dynamic.
That relieves us of the.
But we're already over the number by 40%, but we're saying, well, what if we're over the number by 60%? Will that change it? Okay. So this letter probably doesn't, we're not expecting this letter to actually necessarily change the game there.
But I want a letter from the governors. I was saying no.
I agree with that sentiment too. So I'm just trying to separate the two out.
Yes, you're right.
Okay. So now, then down by the train station, there's a bunch of different issues. One is we have to zone for, assuming the letter fails, we have to zone 450 units.
Yes.
Right? And the process of writing that zoning is going to take some time, right? And my question is, can we write the zoning independent of the parcel that we pick? Right? So that any one of these 3, 5, 6 parcels that are down there, we could take and make it basically an overlay district and say, this is the zoning that we want to apply. Because if we can, that changes, it makes different timelines for writing the zoning versus picking the parcel, right? Because if you're trying to write the zoning and pick the parcel in the next 6 or 7 weeks, it's outrageously tight.
Well, in 6 weeks, we just basically have to say we're going to put it on the warrant. We have time to work through the details of that warrant until print.
Well, if you remember the size of the article at town meeting,
I know.
it was 20-some pages. That's not a handout you're giving at town meeting. The wording for the zoning has to be more or less set in the booklet, right? And the wording for that zoning may be very similar to the wording that we already have, or it may be something completely different. But whatever that wording is, that has to be set 6 weeks before town meeting. The parcel can potentially be decided later, but that wording has to be set, right? I also talked to the office, and my understanding is that the way the 550 and 410 properties, both can count as part of our zoning district since they abut each other, and that the total density of the project is the total number of units we're zoned for, which will count 550 and 410, plus the 150 units we have to build at the train station. My math today came out to be a really low number that we have to build or zone for at the train station. Like I believe we could take the entire long parcel, we could zone 30 acres to build 150 houses, basically, and still meet the letter. So there's a lot of properties that come into play. They just have to be big enough they have to be the proper size. So I think there's a lot we should do, and we should work through the planning board with. Also, from the discussions I had with the EOHL, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Executive Office of Housing and Living.
They do not look at what is currently on the property. Their only requirement is that the property is buildable for the number of units you're trying to build, not what's, and buildable means the wetland type thing.
That was very clear.
They don't care what's currently there.
So I think that that's important because I think that both at the planning board meeting where the long property was selected and at the meeting that we had, the joint meeting we had with the planning board immediately before town meeting, the argument was that only the long property was acceptable because the other properties the state wouldn't like it because none of them would ever be built and developed because they already had business parks, office parks on
We
them.
could take the IBM buildings that are currently
I
there and those
understand,
would count.
right? And I'm saying, like, that was the argument that was presented to us as this is a do or die situation, and
that might have been the belief, and it probably was the belief, but I think we're finding out now, the further we dig, that if there is a flexibility, that's the flexibility.
so let's make sure that that's part of the conversation
Yeah.
that we have with the planning board when we have this conversation.
And we get absolute assurance from this office of housing and livable communities that that is the case.
Yeah.
I think, and that's not, it's not a difficult question. We're not asking, we're never planning on building there. That's not how zoning works. We zone for the future all the time. So we're zoning for the future, we're meeting the requirement at 140% if we did nothing already. Or we can now talk about, then it gives the planning board flexibility of zoning. We'll use the long property as an example, zoning it, differently. If we don't want industrial there, well, let's zone it, scale down to what actually works for the town. We've got to come up with something. It's going to take a lot of work. And I don't want it to be all on the planning board. I think it should be shared by the two boards, because it is important. It is important to the community, so it's naturally important to us. So I would ask that we have a couple, we try to set up a few joint meetings. I would like the town administrator's office to work with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities to maybe get, if you can nail down real answers on some of these questions.
In writing.
And density questions,
Okay.
that would be huge. Because in what their zoning expectations are, knowing that we're meeting the intent of this, where I know a lot of towns aren't even remotely as far along as we are, or even considering it to be where we are. They're trying to find out ways to scam or scheme it, where, we already hit the home run, now we're just trying to find out what else we can do to do what's best for our town and our community.
And as far as meeting with the planning board or subcommittee, I'm game for either of those. I go to almost all the planning board meetings anyway, so.
All right, so I guess that's a little bit of guidance. I know we've got stuff to get, I want to get through all this finance stuff. Obviously, the next few meetings, we've got to get through our finance budget season, but then let's jump into the planning as you guys gear up for.
So then do we still want to send this letter with the revisions? We're just sending it to get a
I think it's
formal no?
Well, we don't, I don't know if that office will get, I think we're doing our due diligence by giving the town another option that may or may not be something that can be presented to the planning board. If it can't, then it can't. But if it is an option, well, now we got something else we can explore.
So my one concern with this letter is we're committing to more than, the planning board to more than they've approved.
That's why it would have to go back in front of the planning board. The developer would have to, another application for this to happen, and it would have to be approved. So there's a lot more to it than just, I just want to know if it's even a possibility. That's all this was for. So, because right now, a no is as simple as, we don't know. So we're just going to sit here and not try to completely focus just on Foster Street when this could resolve some of this problem. Let's just say it's not 150. Say we get relief of some kind that the governor's office would be able to
Accept or reject.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't need, I want the boards.
I mean, I'm okay with doing this if it's the strong sense of the rest of the board. I'm not going to vote no, but am concerned. I think we're sort of viewing this as, well, it's worth a shot. I think we need to remember that this is our second request for a waiver.
Yeah.
And every request for a waiver will sort of
Dilute the next request.
And
Well, I don't think we have any more
and
requests.
it risks us looking less than willing to comply. And I think I don't think we're unwilling to comply.
Yeah, I think,
I'm afraid it's going to give the wrong,
they're expecting it.
personally, if I would rather see us submit a request for an advisory opinion, putting the math together as to what our density is over at King Street, and then saying, this is what we think our density needs to be over on Foster. Do you agree?
I think they can work, because this letter, outside of, you think that an opinion change on us, the letter doesn't hold any teeth, but it gives us a formal response, which we do not have
If
any.
we get one. We asked for a formal response.
Well, we got one, because I looked her in the eye and asked. She said, you will get a response, and you will get it fairly quickly. That was the answer, and I said, well, that's what the town needs, because we have a town meeting coming down.
All right, then I would suggest that we follow it up very quickly with a request for them to confirm our math.
Exactly, yes, I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
And then,
Once we get the letter back from Chris or whomever from EOHLC, then we push back and ask for that. Okay, so help us, give us some guidance.
This is
Working-
how we're doing the math, do you agree?
Right.
and they should be working together. I don't want to stall this discussion on zoning or while this is going on. I think we should be working with the planning board. We should be meeting with the planning board
Yeah, absolutely.
a few times to get some resolution of this and find out what's best for that.
Yeah, concurrently, not consecutively, yeah.
Says the guy about to go on vacation for a month.
Right? Here's the keys.
Someone,
You know very well that I will call in on any meetings that I have to. It's just, I'll make sure my background is not...
The ocean.
The ocean. No, seriously, this is important, and I recognize that. The timing isn't great, but, so we have a 5-member.
Enjoy,
board.
you've done your time.
But, so any other discussion? We can, oh yeah, I guess we do need a motion, that's fine.
So my only question then is, do we really want to address this to the governor, or do we want to address it to the ELHC?
I think, well, it's her office.
Yeah, there's more CCs on that than,
I'm asking, I'm not saying we don't send a copy to the governor, but is it the governor we should be starting with and addressing, or it should be the other office?
it's every State of the Union, at MMA, every time she's in front of a camera, anytime she's doing a speech, it's all about housing.
Yeah.
And the MBTA community is a big part of that. And I think that's exactly who we should, in my opinion, is we should address it to her, because frankly, she's not going to be the one that's going to be penning a reply. I think the reply is already ready to send, frankly. There may be some tweaking to that reply, but.
If I may, just from experience, it's then we would be addressed to the secretary, but the secretary's office will absolutely forward this immediately to the governor's office, so for direction and to confer. So I agree that it being addressed to the governor, from my experience, is better than it could just come right down to the secretary with the guidance there.
So address it to the governor, and the governor sending it to the secretary, not address it to the secretary going to the governor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Are we done? Move the select board vote to authorize select board chair Gary Wilson to sign endorsed correspondence to Governor Maura Healey regarding the MBTA community zoning on behalf of the Littleton Select Board.
As amended?
As amended.
Second?
Moved by Mark, thank you. Seconded by Matthew. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Please make sure that all the Healey's are spelled correctly.
That's right, that was as amended part.
Yeah, I noticed, but it's
Okay.
All right, we're
search and find.
getting through this here.
Replace. 6C.
Excuse me? 6C? Yeah.
6C.
6C, vote to reclassify the assistant treasurer collector payroll manager position in town of Littleton classification and compensation plan schedule A from grade 14 to 15. So,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is something that, first of all, this doesn't take away from the hard work and the effort and the commitment that I have witnessed every Littleton town employee has put forward on behalf of this community. So, but there are, in this particular position, there have been added responsibilities, as you can see from the amended job description that you have here, that should be captured in the in the correct compensation range that that fits the responsibilities of the revised job description. I have had conversations with the assistant town administrator, HR, and finance individuals, and people are all in agreement and make their recommendation.
I mean, Mark, I know we talked,
So, I have no problem with reclassifying this as a 14 to a 15, but according to the way the policies work on general on how people get reclassified and promoted, when the salary should now be a 15.1, not a 15.2.
Okay.
And then it'll be a 15.2 in July.
yeah, July.
Understood.
Is that the expectation?
The expectation of the employee?
Yeah.
I don't know what's been communicated.
That's a reasonable request.
Yeah, I think,
We, typically when people get promoted or the grades change, they get reslotted and that's just the way it would work for this one, I think.
Okay, that's fair.
But the conversation's been had with Kim about
Yes.
15 too.
When
About that number.
I originally had it, I don't know if, Ryan, you've had it.
Yeah, I mean,
Follow up.
I think our recommendation was two, because we're thinking of this as, if the position were with the revised job description and regrading, that if we were to be doing this as a hire, that if it were anything 3 and less, then that would be, that would be something at the TA's right to be able to make that higher. So it's that was the thinking, to put it in as 2. So, but, it's up to the board in terms of what direction you're providing, so.
I'd advocate for 15 too. I think we've got a heck of an employee there, and I'm happy to reward those that.
yeah, I mean, I'm more.
Not saying that that shouldn't be rewarded.
No argument there on any level. I guess the question is, you always concerned with the equity side, right? I know, Mark, I probably you're referring to it as what's our past practice, what do we typically do in this situation? And I would say Mark is correct, that we typically move to the step 1 of the upgrade, recognizing the promotion.
Rightfully empowered the town administrator to be able to do that.
We do. That's why. And so this is why, in lieu of a policy, which we probably need to look at this, I will use the federal government's model whenever we promote a person within the organization. You are in a grade and a step. When you promote to the next grade up, you move 2 steps you add 2 steps to your current job, drop it down into the new grade where that lands, and round up to the next. Very simple, it's consistent, it never changes.
No surprises.
There it is, everyone gets to see it, that's how you get promoted. So I think we could get something similar there so there's no more confusion. Although, I do recognize the flexibility with the town administrator having negotiation power, if you will, at least for 3 steps in the grade. So I'm willing to listen to both sides on this because
I subscribe to the
I mean,
latter.
if you go by the rationale that these are new working conditions, if it was a union job, this would be considered new working conditions. It's like a new hire, in which case the town administrator would have the authority to do 15.2. I mean, I understand, but this isn't a promotion into an existing position, right?
Yeah,
This is a promotion.
I understand
into a
that, but
position.
I fully support the idea that this individual should be paid more, right? And they definitely qualify for all of this. But we went through this last year where people came in and asked when we did the reclassification, they said, well, it's not fair how we were stepped and we wouldn't move people across steps. People came in and had their jobs reclassified and they moved down. We didn't allow them to move straight down. We moved them into whatever the right position was there. So
Yeah.
it's a bad precedent to set, to not always, I mean, it's the consistency piece. It's the equity piece of treating everyone the same when the jobs are reclassified, so.
I understand that, you're right.
I think 15.2 is appropriate, and I think that we empower our town administrator to be able to make that decision. And certainly Kim has earned her stripes, and she's come up to speed faster than, and she is the go-to for Munis. There's a lot that she adds that isn't even incorporated into the job description.
So I agree we need some kind of a rewards program for this, but if
We don't have one yet.
we don't have one, and wouldn't be able to take her from a 15.1 to a 15.3 on town administrator's recommendation. We just don't have that ability to do it, so.
So we've got two things kind of running next to each other here. What Jim said, we've heard him say in the past, we're grading the position. This is a position upgrade, this will be a 15, whether
Yep.
Kim is in it or whether somebody else we hire. This position deserves to be a 15, and it's
Yep.
obvious in here. So I think now we go back to this personnel and the equity part.
The conversation's already had with the employee. I wouldn't go back on that.
Yeah.
It's a morale issue. I think it's, I just feel as though the 15.2 is appropriate, and it's not going to break the bank. I don't think it sets a
What
precedent.
about the morale issue for the folks who weren't
I don't think it
afforded
sets a
that
precedent.
opportunity?
I don't think it sets a precedent. It's a reclassification, and that's
We did
where it's
it,
appropriate.
we reclassified them last year and we didn't do this.
Not this position, no.
Other positions were.
But there is an alternative to this, and this is something we do when we bring people on and we bring them in at a higher step. We don't step them in July. They go a full cycle. When they get moved up within the year itself, they don't step in that year. They step. So that's another option.
I think we empower the town, we voted for the reclassification and empower the town administrator to make the decision based upon the conversation with the employee. That's where I would say.
It's not. That's fair. It's fair.
So we are reclassifying the position, we're not reclassifying the employee,
And
right?
And by virtue of that, you're giving the town administrator flexibility to grade it from 15.1 to 15.3, because that's.
That's
what-
correct.
But there is no grading from 15.1 to 15.3. You hire someone at a level, and
No, we're-
every year they can
Yeah.
move one step. We don't have a policy or a plan
Correct.
for anyone double stepping.
Right, we're just saying, I'm saying we need to, our vote is 15. We're voting on 15, we're not voting on a step here. We're voting on classifying this
Because
as
we've
a 15.
historically allowed the town administrator to add flexibility, unless we were talking about anything over a 3, then we would, obviously.
We're basically passing.
That's policy.
We're
We don't have a
basically
policy.
passing the buck.
No,
You don't have a
we have a
policy.
policy on how we hire people. We're not hiring someone at a 15.2 or 15.3. We already have someone that we're reclassifying. It's not the same policy. We don't have a policy that we can randomly step people to based on anyone's performance. We don't have that ability
So
for anybody.
So we shouldn't take no stance on what step.
But there is
Desire.
but we
What-
have a policy on when things are classified, which when we regraded all the positions, we said how everything moved. We took this position last year on how, when we regraded the assistant,
But this isn't this is a regrading this is a change in the working
Yes.
conditions, not just a regrading of an existing position. The reason that it's moving up is because it has additional.
yes.
So if you were to hire somebody today,
responsibilities.
so let's just use it this way, if Kim did not exist, and we had to hire this position, the town administrator would have flexibility to grade it from step 1 to step 3.
Yes.
Right? So this, I recognize, we're sitting here arguing something in lieu of a policy that we don't have. So I don't know
So-
if there's an answer.
We did this with Park and Rec last year, where we reclassified Tim, and we didn't say that we could put him in any step. We put him at the step that it fit on the grade. So, but we're not doing the same with Kim. Right, so now there's an inequity that we're introducing if we're allowing Kim to be at a different step than we did with this other reclassification.
You just shared a good example.
But there was also the change in.
Well, that was
That was
true for
exactly,
Tim.
that was exactly true for
as
Tim.
well.
Yep,
Yeah, that was exactly
because
what
Tim
happened.
came in and asked to be moved up a step, and we said, no, regrade the job. And we regraded the job, and that's how he got moved up in salary, was the job was regraded, and
But
that's what happened here.
Nothing changed in his description, right?
Yeah, they rewrote his job description and regraded it.
Remember
Yes, I do.
the responsibilities for
I do,
the
yep.
paramedic, the safety lifeguards.
Yeah,
But again, like, we're not voting tonight on a step. We're voting on the job classification, the grade only. So why are we even arguing about what step Kim is going to be?
Yeah,
Well, we don't take any stance on it.
Can I complicate this even more?
Sure, yeah. Why not? It's 9 o'clock, let's go for it.
And I know this has been a somewhat of a sensitive topic regarding this specific position for a little bit. What would it do to the conversation if we actually had a conversation and understanding that the next step would be moved July 1st, but is there any temperature for retro regarding this in this current fiscal year? Would that help, kind of be in between?
If she goes step one now and
she
gets
goes to step two,
July.
but then it's a retro for step one, going back.
Or as long as she's been performing.
Correct, exactly. And I think that would,
wait, I'm not following the
She
math.
becomes a 15-1 based upon when she took on the responsibility,
Okay,
so retroactive.
But within the
But-
fiscal year.
but in-
within this
yeah,
fiscal year.
Right, and then in
July 1st.
July, she gets step two.
that I'm okay with.
I think it's a good compromise.
This was setting some precedents here. Not that we are bound by precedents, but
Yeah.
this would probably, we're talking about potentially creating a policy, because we don't have a policy. This might be something that we consider adding to our personnel. I know you're going to be jumping into HR policies soon, but that might be something that we consider when this happens,
Yep.
mid-year, that
Right.
this
Right,
might be how we-
it gives the select board the flexibility to
It does.
recognize and appreciate. And I don't think, I'm not big on the word precedent, because when you're dealing with situations like this, you're on a
Yeah.
case-by-case basis on as many different factors that are in there, but it gives you the flexibility to, while, staying within boundaries, but you're still also recognizing the effort that has been put forward for past performances.
To that end, I mean, you're still, the motion is still the way it is, and you're just allowing the town administrator
Yeah.
flexibility to implement what Jim just outlined.
It's just as long as we're locking it into the equity piece. And if this happens because of no fault of the employee.
Correct.
The position it could have been regraded in July, and this wouldn't have been
Correct.
an issue. It got graded mid-cycle during the year. But
Yes,
I'm
sir.
willing to I'll look at it either way, whatever the board decides.
I think Jim's proposal is a good one.
Here. Okay. I look like you were watching paint dry there for a minute. All right.
Move the select board vote to approve the revised job description for the assistant treasurer collector and payroll manager and regrade the position in the town of Littleton classification and compensation plan, Schedule A, from grade 14 to grade 15.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Matthew. All those in favor?
Aye.
And thank you, HR, for getting that work done in your office.
And the personal advisor.
And PAC had a role in it as well.
So I can't claim credit for any of this alcohol policy other than,
Drinking it?
well, yeah.
Let me introduce the section first. So we are now looking at the review of proposed revisions to the Select Board alcohol licensing policy within the Select Board's regulations and policies. This is just another one of our updates we try to do each meeting to improve our policies.
So Diane Dickerson did all the work, and what She took a lot of the stuff that's procedural out of the policy and is putting in a separate procedure section on the select board page, rather than in the procedures being part of the policy, so.
And it looks like she's just referencing the ABCC procedures
Yes.
essentially, right?
Effectively, yes.
Yeah, good.
Right, so what it does is it allows it to be referenced to the ABCC. If it changes anything, then, you know, it's already accounted for, as opposed to being what we have in there now, which is very, more prescriptive. So it's a more flexible way to handle things.
So, and then it also includes how we're going to prorate, which we didn't really have a policy on before.
Cool.
So I think according to our, we can either approve it or we can introduce it and then approve it at the next one.
First reading, second reading.
Yeah, can we talk about that? I mean, I know you've been on the board a while, and that's how it's been done. Is that,
It's actually, it was never done that way until I came from the school committee, because we did it on the school committee that way.
okay, so is
So
there a
if you guys
reason why,
don't want it-
I mean, we've all had several days to look at this, and we could bring the discussion here, and that's what I mean, if it was just thrown on us today, I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we discussed this at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago when we did talk about the changes we wanted to make. And I know we debated the pro rata changes, and we talked about removing the procedural stuff and
Yes.
putting in AV. So in principle, I think I already knew what was coming. I would have no problem voting on this tonight.
I think it's case by case.
I do think in general, it's a good idea to have the language for one meeting before we vote.
I mean,
But in this case, I don't.
If it was a really, and especially if it's a real complex one that we're all like, God, this one's very difficult, this
Yeah.
one seems to be a little bit more, we're going with ABC language.
Yeah.
I mean, so, whatever, what do you think?
Yeah, no,
Good,
fine.
everybody's comfortable?
Yeah, let's vote for it.
Move the select board vote to approve the revisions of the select board alcohol licensing policy within the select board's regulations and policy as printed in the select board meeting packet.
Second.
Moved by Mark, second by Matthew, all those in favor?
Aye.
Let's look at the approval of the minutes of the joint select board finance committee meeting on December 5th, 2023, and January 8th, 2024, select board meeting minutes.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, can we separate these two motions?
Sure,
So we
certainly.
can vote on one and not the other?
Okay, you were not here for one?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to just, that's all. Mark, when you do this, can we do two motions?
Yep. There were a couple minor typos in the minutes from Diane that I don't remember exactly where they were at the moment. But outside of, like, they were just words misspelled. It didn't actually change anything, so I don't know if we particularly care, or you want to just say, I'll give her the changes. It's like, I think there was like, wasn't misspelled or something like that, and a few others, though.
So besides grammar changes?
It was just,
nothing?
it wasn't even grammar, it was just typos.
Okay.
Let's just, I think we can just probably just approve it then.
Okay. Move the select board vote to approve the meeting minutes from the joint select board finance committee meeting on December 5th, 2023.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Matthew. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Move the select board vote to approve the meeting minutes from the select board meeting on January 8th, 2024.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Matthew. All those in favor?
Aye.
And we have one abstention. Correct.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, Littleton. We have a couple more meetings this week.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.